Hello everyone, I'm Theo Pearsall with Pearsall Properties. I'm a realtor, I'm a real estate investor, and I really focus on affordability in today's market. So today, I'm out at Jimmy Hula's here in St. Augustine. You can see the beautiful background behind me. Today we're gonna be setting up over here. It happens the first Tuesday of every month. In about a half an hour, we're gonna have about 30 to 50 people here. Ryan Rice and Yellow Card Properties put on this meeting, again, the first Tuesday of every month. And it's just to bring people that are in the real estate market, investors together, and adjacent to real estate, property managers, financiers, private money. And private money is today's topic. And we have Glenn Friedman, who is well known in the area and runs his own meetup at Whitey's on the fourth Thursday of every month. He's gonna be here today giving us the tips and tricks and insider information on how and why he started doing it, and what are some of his challenges and some of his biggest wins since he started this 7 years ago. All right, guys, we're at Jimmy Hula's. One of the biggest turnouts we've ever seen here. All here for Glenn. Gonna learn about some private financing today. More to come.
And so Glenn is truly an entrepreneur at heart. He has done everything from working on a chain of comic book stores, trading stocks, to starting his own gaming company. He has also owned multi-unit retail franchise called Cartridge World. But at the end of the day, Glenn still doesn't know what he wants to do when he grows up. And so Glenn is also a veteran in the real estate market over here. He has done everything from investing, lending, and all of that good stuff. So he has made his journey into the world of private lending, and he is here to talk about that today and how that could benefit each and every one of you in some way, shape, or form. So let's give Glenn a good round of applause.
Well, first of all, if you don't know me, I have a loud voice, so I don't really need a microphone. But I did bring notes because this is actually the first time I've actually given, even though I run the Whitey's meeting, if anybody doesn't know what the Whitey's meeting is, we do a meeting on the fourth Tuesday of the month at Whitey's Fish Camp. We get between 50 and 80 people at the meeting, and hopefully we won't get killed during the rain. So this is my first time giving a talk on private lending, so I will talk loudly because of the rain, and I brought lots of notes. So my origin story, I came down back in the summer of 2018, and I had no real estate experience. And like you guys, I took the time to actually come to meetings to kind of meet people. And I went to a meeting one day, and as they're going around saying what they do, a couple people got up and they said, oh, I've got money to lend, and I'm a private lender. So when it got to me, I'm like, well, I've got some money to lend too. I sold an apartment in Manhattan. My wife and I had some money. I didn't know what the hell that meant, but I figured, all right, I'll try it. And at the end of the meeting, I met a young couple who had flipped a couple houses, and they were looking for a $100,000 loan to flip another house. And I said, okay, I don't know what this means, but let's kind of show me what you do. And they showed me the house, and it was disgusting. It was a house up in Arlington, cat piss house. They were buying it for $100,000, and they were going to rehab it. And based on my little due diligence, which is kind of meeting them and seeing what they did, I said, all right, let's try it. I didn't know anything about how much to charge or fees or docs or any of this stuff. But I decided to jump in. I lent them the money. 6 months later, they sold the house. They made $65,000 on the flip. The house was gorgeous. And I made $6,000. And I said, holy shit, this is the easiest money I've ever made in my entire life. Because I didn't do anything. They did all the work, but because they had the opportunity of working a private lender, it made it very easy for them. So Warren Buffett talks about 2 rules of investing. First rule of investing, don't lose money. Second rule of investing, there are no other rules. And with private lending, that's exactly what you need to do. You need to not lose money on a private lending deal. In private lending, they talk about the 4 C's. 4 C's. The first C being the collateral. The most important thing that there is the collateral. When you're lending money to somebody, you need to know what the collateral is worth and potentially what it will be worth at the end of the day. And if you don't know that, then you need to work with people like realtors, like brokers, to figure that number out. Because if you're going to lend money that you've worked very hard for, the first and most important thing is I want that money back. I worked very hard for my money. I want that money back. And if I make money on top of that, that's great, but that's the most important thing. Second C is character. Who's the person that you're lending the money to? Are they the type of person who will do what they say they're going to do? What's their experience level? Have they done this before? If they've never flipped a house before, and I get calls all the time, it's like, hey, I'd like to borrow money. I want to borrow $100,000. Great. Have you flipped a house before? No. So my answer is no, but if you work with one of these other 7 people who I've lent money to, who I know, like, and trust, I will gladly lend you the money. So the character's second C. What's their reputation like? Reputations take a long time to build and are easy to destroy. So I was at a meeting recently where somebody asked me for money, and I had seen her around, but I didn't really know much about her. But somebody else after the meeting said, "Don't ever lend her money. It's like she screwed over tons of people. Don't do it." So at that point, because I knew the other woman, I was like, "All right," I was like, "Sorry, I'm not going to lend you any money." The third C is what's called capacity. Do they have the funds or the team in place to be able to carry out the flip or the rental or the rehab or whatever they want to do with the money? And if they don't have that, can they find a partner? Can they find somebody with money? Do they have another property? I get people regularly ask me, "Can you lend me 100% of the money that I need? I want to borrow 100 grand for a flip. I need 100%. It's like, well, there's no risk there, but do you have another property that maybe we could put another mortgage on? So when I lend money out, I put a mortgage on the property. If I'm going to lend 100%, I need enough collateral that I know I'm going to get my money back. And sometimes they might have a money partner. Sometimes they might have a free and clear property, in which case I could put a mortgage not on just the property, but on the other property. The fourth C is credit. A lot of private money lenders pull credit. I do not. And the reason I do not is because I'm really betting on either the jockey or the horse. The jockey being the person rehabbing the house, or the horse, the collateral. So I don't really care what your credit is, but your credit is important. It's important to be able to show people that you're good with money, you can manage money. And what does your credit say about you? A lot of people follow this thing called the 10-20-70 rule. The 10-20-70 rule says 10% of all the money you earn, you have to save. You have to save 10% of your money, use 20% of it for debt, and then live on 70% of the money, the 10-20-70 rule. And what I teach my... And the electricity's gone. Really do thank everybody for coming out today. I try to teach my kids about money through books. So one of the things I tell them, and I've got 2 kids in college, is if all you do is read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and The Richest Man in Babylon, and you read that every year, you'll be way ahead of everybody else. Those 2 books together will give you the mindset and just the ability to see what's out there, so you have the ability to gain wealth. And I always ask, how much learning are you doing on a regular basis? Don't worry, I have a lot of life insurance. Yeah.
Someone doesn't want that information now. That was close. That was like very behind. Very close.
Thank you, Theo. So how much? Somebody really doesn't want me to tell you this information. How much learning do you do on a regular basis? Every day I spend some time either on YouTube or an audiobook or a regular book. I love and live real estate right now and private lending because this is what I do every day. And you should too. Everybody every day should spend some amount of time, whether that's 10 or 15 minutes, learning about what you want to get better at.
Every time you say learn,
Fantastic. So for private lending, there's a number of online stuff that's really almost all free. You could go to YouTube and follow 2 guys who are called Hard Money Bankers. Hard Money Bankers is up in Maryland. These are 2 guys who started 15 years ago. They raised over the time $50 million. They have so much YouTube stuff that's free. It's just fantastic. And then there's a guy who used to be in Jacksonville named Logan Ricchetti. Name of the company is Finley Capital. He has free resources on his website, and this is one of them, which is a private money handbook. It's a 31-page book. Literally, if you read this book and you follow the YouTube, you'll know 95% of what it is to do private lending. It's free. It's fantastic. And then also another book that I recommend is called Lend to Live. This is run by a woman who also started a private lending group. And the goal is really just to see what other private lenders out there do. How do you learn about private lending? What can you do to kind of steal what they do? The goal is to surround yourself with people who are where you want to be. Jim Rohn talks about the idea that you are the average of the 5 people who you spend the most time with. If you're the smartest, most hardworking person in the room, you are in the wrong room. You need to put yourself in a room where people are where you want to go to. And that's what I do. I try to put myself in rooms where, when I first started, I've never done private lending. So I talk to people who did private lending, and I'm willing to go to a seminar for private lending or learn education and spend some money, not the most amount of money. I can't stand the idea of spending $30,000 or $50,000 on a mastermind, but there are $500 seminars, there are $1,000. The hard money bankers guys, they have a program online. It's $99 a month. You join for a month, you see if you like it. It's great if you want to get into private lending. The other thing about private lending is you don't need a lot of money to start private lending. Even though I started with 100 grand, you literally can start with $10,000 private lending. And the way some people do that is what's called WRAP lending, W-R-A-P lending. And if you Google that, you'll learn there's a woman up in Atlanta, Dorsey Bodiford, has a class on WRAP lending. And what WRAP lending does, it says, look, as opposed to I don't have 100 grand, I've only got 10 grand. Okay, well, Ryan's got 90 grand, and I know Ryan and he trusts me, so what I can do is I can take my 10 grand and wrap Ryan's 90 grand around so that not only do I make money on my money, but I can make money on Ryan's money as well. So if you start with $10,000 and you do one loan only, you can make $5,000 on that one loan by wrapping other people. And that 10 becomes 15, and the 15 becomes 25, and the next thing you know, you have a nice chunk of change. Okay. Lending is a great business. And one of the reasons it's great is because it adds to my diversification in real estate. I have Airbnbs, I have pad splits, I've done a flip now and then, not very well. But private lending is one of these things where it's like, if I have 10 loans, a chunk of change. Okay. Lending is a great business. And one of the reasons it's great is because it adds to my diversification in real estate. I have Airbnbs, I have pad splits, I've done a flip now and then, not very well. But private lending is one of these things where it's like, if I have 10 loans out, well, I'm not really risking any one person. My risk is diversified along 10 loans or 50 loans or 100 loans. And it's not that there's no risk, but compared to a lot of other people in the real estate business, private lending is one of the least riskiest businesses there is. And the reason for that is just because when I'm lending my money, I'm lending at a wholesale level. If you want to buy a house for 100 grand and put in 50 for rehab and then sell it for 200, okay, so the ARV, the after repair value is 200. The most I'm going to lend on that house is about 130 grand, about 65% of the ARV. And the reason for that is that, God forbid, you get hit by a bus, I want to get my money back. So loan max is about 65%. Typical terms mean, okay, well, what does it cost to borrow your money? Typical terms for hard money lenders is generally 1% interest a month. You're going to borrow 100 grand, it's $1,000 a month in interest. There are fees up front, what are called points. A point is 1% of the loan. So I charge 2% up front. Other people here might charge 3% up front, might charge 1.5% up front. It's all negotiable. And then my loans are generally for 6 months because the goal here is to turn my money. I want to take my 100 and turn it into 105, and then take that 105 and turn it into 110, and then 115, and just move it like that. I don't want to keep my loan out for more than a year at most. That's typical. If I'm successful doing those terms, 12% interest, 2 points up front, maybe a fee or two, you could earn about 15% annual on your money. What does 15% mean? It means that every 4.5 years, you will double your money if you keep your money out there. So if you're age 30 and you have $50,000, by the time you're age 50, you will have $800,000. That's what turning your money every 4.5 years can do if you're a successful private lender. And a lot of my private lending I do in tax-free or tax-deferred accounts. Yeah, I didn't know anything about self-directed IRAs. Self-directed IRAs are just IRAs that you're allowed to do private lending in. You could own a house in, you could buy crypto, you could buy gold. So I moved over the years all of my IRAs out of the stock market, and now I do private lending on all of my IRAs. Another funny thing is, like, who tells the IRS how much money I make? Nobody. Nobody reports how much money private lenders make Not telling you that to cheat. I'm just saying that's just a really odd thing that's out there. Other rules about private lending. First thing is you never wire or send money directly to the borrower. You need to close at a title company or an attorney's office. You always have to have a signed promissory note, a mortgage, which is recorded in the county, and a personal guarantee. The personal guarantee is really just kind of to scare people. I've never used a personal guarantee. I'm not really going after people. But the goal is really to make them think, I have to get paid back, and if not, I'm going to go after you forever. A guy I knew in high school does some private lending up in Jersey, and this guy promised him 20 or 25%, didn't have a promissory note, didn't have a mortgage. You know what he's got? He's got nothing. He's lost a couple $100,000 and hopes and prays that he's ever going to get paid back the money. Always, signed promissory note, recorded first position mortgage, personal guarantee. Always get what's called lender's title insurance. Lender's title insurance is something that guarantees not only do they own the house, but God forbid something happens, I get paid back. As the lender, I would get paid back. People talk about first positions and second position notes. Almost always, as a private lender, I lend in first position, which means I lend you $100,000 to flip the house. The mortgage is on there. I'm in first position. God forbid you get hit by a bus. That's my house. Sometimes I do a second position. I'll give you an example. I have a lender who I've lent to many times. He has a house worth $700,000. He's trying to sell it. His mortgage is only $200,000. So he asked me, can I put a second position mortgage behind his mortgage for $100,000? Okay, $700,000 in value is only $200,000 mortgage, and that is a very safe loan for me. God forbid he gets hit by a bus, I would not mind taking over that house, paying off the first mortgage, and owning a $700,000 house for $300,000. But I know he's going to pay me back because he also has $300,000 in equity. That ain't going anywhere. So second positions, and there's the woman who wrote this book, Beth Johnson. She talks about second position mortgages all the time. Loves second position mortgages. Go see the house and the rehab regularly. There used to be a hard money lender here in Jacksonville who lent shit tons of money and is no longer a private lender. And one of the reasons he is not is because they let people take the money without checking out what's going on with the houses. I walked into a house that he had lent on. He told me that the house was almost done. So I walk into the house is nothing. Not a fucking thing was done. Person stole $150,000 from him, and because he didn't have the systems in place to do this, he never checked on it. If you're going to lend your money, you need to go and see the house, make sure there's a house there, and when they're doing the rehab, go check every couple weeks, just to make sure that progress is being made. Come up with a general buy box. So my buy box, in general, is I want to lend on houses that at the after repair value is $300,000 and below. The reason for that is I just think they're easier to sell in Jacksonville. You might have a buy box that, okay, I only want to lend in this zip code. There are certain zip codes I don't like lending on unless it's somebody who I know will perform. And it's okay to break the rules. That's why I break my rules regularly when it comes to certain people, because even though the golden rule says treat others as you want to be treated, the real golden rule is it's my money, I write the rules. Borrowers must have some skin in the game. If they don't have any skin in the game, they're more likely to say, hey, you know what, this is not working out. They walk away from the deal, and then you're kind of stuck. So on a typical example where somebody's borrowing $100,000 up front, okay, I might lend $80,000 or $85,000 up front. They need to have some skin in the game to feel the pain that if things go sideways, and in real estate they go sideways a lot, that they're not going to walk away from the deal. And don't send large rehab draws up front. If somebody wants to do a $50,000 rehab draw, let them spend $5,000. Let you see what the $5,000 did. Did they do the demo? Did they tear down some walls? Then send them the $5,000. Don't send them $25,000 if they have a $50,000 rehab, don't give them $25,000 to start. You don't know what they're going to do with that money. Don't lend money to homeowners. Big rule. There are very different regulations regarding lending money to a homeowner on a home they live in versus lending money to people who are flipping houses or rentals and stuff like that. After the great financial crisis in 2008, they came up with a bunch of rules called Dodd-Frank. Dodd-Frank mainly refers to homeowners. Do not do that. Only lend, almost always, I only lend to entities. I don't lend to individual names. Create an LLC. It takes about an hour. Anybody could do it. Only lend to entities for business purpose loans, and learn about usury. Usury is the legal limit for how much interest can you charge. And in Florida, it's generally 18%. find other private lenders and copy what they do. This is not brain surgery. Okay, compared to flipping houses, lending is really not that difficult. So when I first started doing lending, there were loan docs. I had the title company make up the loan docs for me, and then I learned more about loan docs, and other private lenders said you have to have your own loan docs. So what did I do? I stole another lender's loan docs, and I brought them to an attorney. And I said, "Can I use these?" And the attorney's like, "These are awesome," and I think they were Kyle's. So, but I continue to learn and tweak my model as I go on. Early on, I never knew about points. I never knew about monthly payments. So most private lenders, they want you to do a monthly payment. I didn't know that early on, so I don't do any monthly payments. I wish I had, but I don't anymore. I didn't know about extension fees. Again, the idea is to be open and willing to learn constantly. Fight what's called the arrival syndrome. The arrival syndrome is, I know what I'm doing. I don't need your help. Come to meetings. This is the goal. This is where it's at. The other thing to fight is what's called Parkinson's law. And if anybody's not familiar with being your own banker, I got involved in infinite banking the last couple of years. Parkinson's law is pretty simple. It says, as your income increases, so does your spending. And my son asked me, why do I don't have a fancy car? I said, I can buy any car I want, but I like driving my used Camry that I bought the week after I moved to Florida. And I've got 180,000 miles on my used Camry. And the goal is, this is a depreciating asset. I don't want to put money into something that's going to depreciate. They don't either. If you want to have nice things, you should buy assets. You should buy assets that try to throw off some cash, and you should take the cash from those assets and buy nice things with those. The goal here is to buy assets. What do I care about most? So what do I care about most? At this age, I'm 56. I care about my time freedom. And private lending gives me that. I want to spend time with whoever I want, whenever I want. Private lending, you could do part-time, you could do full-time. For me, time is the ultimate currency. Unfortunately, traumatized as a kid, my dad died when I was 11, and I always think in terms of, okay, how much time do I have left? And that's become much more important to me as my kids have gotten older and my life has gone on. Another great book that I recently read is called The Gap and the Gain. Gap and the Gain is by Dan Sullivan, and it has a simple message. Don't compare yourself to your future self that you hope to get to, and then you feel bad about you haven't gotten there. Instead, compare yourself to where you have been. The gain is how far I've come. 7 years ago, I had no real estate experience. I own a couple dozen rentals. I do private lending. God bless, I was invited to be a speaker. I compare myself to where I was then, not, oh my God, I'm not Kyle Paskowitz. I don't have $50 million. I don't have to worry about getting to $100 million. Compare yourself to where you've been and give yourself grace as to how far you've come. And always measure backwards. The idea here is measure where you are versus where you were. Another new habit from the book I really do like is you try to go to bed every night thinking of 3 good things that you did that day. And it's amazing, once you get into a good sleep routine, sleep is way underrated. You need to create a routine for sleep. Go to bed every night thinking of 3 good things that happened that day. Private lending is flexible, like I said. It's part-time. You could do 1 loan a month. You could do 1 loan a year. It really all depends on what you want to do with regards to private lending. If I was 10 or 20 years younger, I would definitely look into creating what's called a lending fund, similar to what other private lenders do here, which is raising capital from other people and then lending it out. The guys up in Maryland, Hard Money Bankers, they've raised $50 million over years. They make $1 million a year each doing this. And they sit in an office. $1 million a year. I mean, that's not me. I have no interest in doing it. I'm a solopreneur. I don't really want to have any employees. I've had employees in the past. They were great. They were terrible. I don't want any employees. And then one of my retirement goals is the idea that, look, if I grow my money, I can actually give it to other private lenders. When you have other money, you could give it to people who have funds across the country and diversify that way. And instead of getting 15%, I might get 10% or 12%, but I would do nothing. I would do absolutely nothing. How much money do you really need? Okay, the idea of setting goals and review them regularly of how much money, and then what are you doing today to move the needle? You guys went out of your way to come to a meeting. That is really, give yourself credit for doing that. Pat Flynn, who used to be with Yellowbird, now he's with Flight. He is excellent at the idea of coming up with goals and been breaking down the goals from yearly to quarterly to weekly to daily. He does these things on the beach at like some ungodly hour on Saturdays, and you should go because he's awesome to listen to. He has a small podcast. I'm going to close with 2 things. One is, so the book of Proverbs talks about hard work leads to profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty. Be a doer. Try things, fail at things, succeed, get up again and again. So much of what we believe starts here in our head, starts with our thoughts. Change your mindset to be around people who have positive mindsets, who want to help each other. Guy on Facebook named Zach Elkins. I'm a Facebook friend with him. I don't know why, but I am. So he writes recently, as a kid, my legs were burned so badly, the doctor said I may never play sports again. And then he later became a professional cage fighter. He was a college dropout. He started multiple businesses. He grew up in a trailer park in Jacksonville. Now he lives on a golf course. Didn't have any rich parents, no higher education, just hustle and grind. And he talks about, Ray Kroc did not start McDonald's until he was 52. Michael Jordan got cut from his high school basketball team. Colonel Sanders started KFC at 62. It doesn't matter when you start. It matters how many times you fail, how long it takes you to get back up and try again. All that matters is you stay persistent at your goals and never quit. You are the author of your life. You get started over and over. You can change the story as many times as you want. I went from comic books to stocks to this to that, and I love real estate now. Am I going to be in real estate in 5 years? Who knows? I have no idea. Final thought is, life is God's gift to you. What you do with it is your gift to God. Do well, do good, and thanks so much.